I want you to think about the last time you were outside and you just felt this sudden, inexplicable sense of lightness.
Oh, yeah. That is such a profound, almost universal human experience, really.
Right. Like maybe you were just walking through a local park on your lunch break or something.
Yeah.
Or, I don't know, just standing near a line of trees on your street and a breeze hits.
And for absolutely no logical reason at all, you just feel this physical urge to laugh.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. It's a highly specific kind of joy. It almost feels like the emotion doesn't belong to you, like you simply walked right into, a pocket of it hanging in the air.
Right. And it's one of those things that usually vanishes the second you try to actually analyze it.
Oh,
The
totally.
moment you stop and think, why am I suddenly so happy standing next to this oak tree?
Mm.
The feeling just dissipates. You're immediately pulled out of the experience and, back into your own head.
Well, today we are taking a deep dive into an exploration of that exact fleeting feeling. We're looking at a really fascinating piece of source material called The Garden That Dances, on fairies, belonging, and the intelligence of delight.
It is such a brilliant text.
It really is. But right out of the gate, let's clarify our mission here. We are not doing a deep dive today to debate folklore.
No, definitely not.
We aren't sitting here trying to prove whether little winged creatures live at the bottom of your garden.
Right, exactly. Anyone approaching this material looking for, I don't know, cryptozoological evidence of fairies
Yeah.
is going to be incredibly frustrated.
Yeah, they're in the wrong place.
Completely. The concept of the fairy is being used here as a highly sophisticated philosophical lens. It's a framework for exploring ecology, mindfulness, and human connection.
So we're looking at what actually happens biologically and psychologically when a human being stops trying to constantly manage the world around them and starts actively participating in it.
Precisely.
Which is incredibly difficult to do, to be honest, because society basically trains us from birth to look at a garden or really any natural space like it's a spreadsheet.
Oh, that's such a good point.
Think about how you probably look at your own yard or even a city park. We look for inputs, outputs, landscaping plans, weed control, property values.
We just view nature as a commodity to be organized.
Right. But this material, it forces you to tear up that spreadsheet from the very first paragraph. It challenges that ingrained habit we have of treating anything unseen as if it's simply unreal.
Yeah, because we are deeply conditioned by our culture and our educational systems really to believe that if something cannot be measured, weighed, and quantified, it just holds no truth.
Right. If you can't put it on a scale, it doesn't exist.
Exactly. But that metric is not the only definition of reality.
Hmm.
To understand what a fairy represents in this ecological framework, we first have to fundamentally change how we perceive the environment itself.
Okay, so how do we do that?
Well, we have to shift from seeing a garden as a decorative passive background to viewing it as a highly intelligent living record.
A living record. I mean, the imagery used to describe this shift is stunning. The text says the garden isn't a picture you look at, it's a threshold you cross.
Yes.
And to cross it, you have to hold your awareness lightly. The phrase used is holding your attention palm up.
Palm up awareness. It's such a great visual.
It really is. You can't be violently grasping for a profound experience, but you also can't be closed off, refusing to let the environment affect you.
Right. And when you enter a space with that palm up awareness, the environment actually reveals its memory.
It's memory. Wait, like the plants remember things.
Yeah, exactly. Grass, for instance, isn't just ground cover. It actually remembers every foot that has ever touched it.
Wow.
Not with a human memory, obviously. It's not full of internal narrative and nostalgia.
Yeah.
But as a literal physical imprint, there is a resonance in the mycelial networks beneath the soil, a chemical response in the roots to the compression of the earth.
That is wild. The ecosystem is basically constantly recording its own history.
It is. And it changes the way you look at everything. Like
Mhm.
flowers don't just track the sun across the sky because of cold mechanical necessity. There is an element of what we might call devotion.
Devotion. I love that.
Hmm.
And the text mentions that the trees do not merely stand there, they preside over the space.
Yes, presiding trees.
And moving through all of this living architecture, woven into the light like golden thread through green silk, are the fairies.
Right. And that imagery presents a very specific and honestly pretty challenging definition of reality.
Yeah.
Because fairies, in this paradigm, are real in the exact same way that love is real.
Okay, yeah. Because you can't put love on a digital scale either.
No, you can't.
You can't photograph it under controlled laboratory conditions or isolate it in a petri dish or produce it as physical evidence in a courtroom.
Exactly. But its effects are undeniably real.
Yeah.
Love alters behavior, it changes lives, it shapes entire societies.
So you see the undeniable effects of love in human action. And you see the effects of fairies when you feel the garden shift its temperature at dusk, or when you experience that sudden, inexplicable lightness we were talking about earlier.
Right. There is a core cosmological argument at the center of this.
Hmm.
The fairy dance is not a theatrical performance, it is a biological and ecological function.
A function.
Yeah.
So it's literally how an unmanaged ecosystem digests its own aliveness.
Yes. Think about a space that hasn't been flattened by chemical treatments and rigid human landscaping. Energy has to move through that space.
Okay, I see.
The fairy dance is that energy in motion. It's a continuous dialogue with the condensation of dew on the grass, the erratic attention of the moths, the slow, centuries-long heartbeat of the trees.
And together, all of these overlapping rhythms create a specific frequency, right? A frequency of belonging.
Exactly, a frequency of belonging. And human beings, especially early in life, are actually highly attuned to that frequency.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, have you ever watched a toddler wandering around in a grassy field?
Oh, yeah. They are chaotic in the best way.
Right. They don't just walk point A to point B. They almost immediately start spinning dizzily in the grass until they fall over laughing.
It's so true.
And the source points out that when kids do this, it isn't just them burning off excess sugar or having a random vestibular reaction. They are actually plugging into the garden's Wi-Fi network.
Plugging into the Wi-Fi. I love that analogy.
Yeah, they are physically remembering a cosmological fact before society teaches them to forget it. They're syncing up with that energy.
Because the child spinning in the grass is engaging in pure participatory joy. They don't view the world as a static object. They recognize that the world is animate, and they're accepting an invitation to join its motion.
But then, we grow into adults and we disconnect from that Wi-Fi network. We basically lose the password.
We do. And the reason it becomes so difficult for adults to access this state of participatory joy really comes down to how we relate to time. We view time entirely differently than the fairy does.
Right, because we fall under what the text brilliantly calls the tyranny of the project.
Yes, the tyranny of the project.
Mm.
It is the distinctly human tendency to treat the present moment merely as a stepping stone to something else.
We are practically allergic to simply being where we are.
Exactly. We are always working on self-improvement, or building a career legacy, or worrying about our inbox, or even just planning how to build a better, more efficient garden tomorrow.
We live perpetually in the future tense. It's like the moment I am currently experiencing is always treated as slightly less important than the future moment I'm working toward.
Right. You're taking a walk, but your mind is rehearsing a meeting you have on Tuesday.
Totally guilty of that.
We all are. But the fairy carries no weight of becoming. For them, the present moment isn't a warm-up routine. It is the entire territory.
Which completely reframes the intention behind our actions. When human beings dance or paint or create art, we usually view it as an expression, right? Like we are trying to push some internal, complicated emotion outward into the world so it can be seen.
Right. Or we do it to accomplish a physiological goal, like getting cardio exercise.
Yeah, but the fairy doesn't dance for any of those utility-driven reasons. The fairy dances simply because the garden is dancing.
And to refuse to dance would be rejecting the living world's invitation. The fairy acts as a mirror, basically showing us what we would look like if we stopped fighting our own aliveness.
Okay, wait, I have to pause here and push back a little on behalf of anyone listening to this on their commute right now.
Sure. Yeah.
Logically, the poetry of this is beautiful, but we kind of need the project to survive, right? Modern life is demanding.
Oh, undeniably.
You have to pay your mortgage, you have to plan for winter, you have to save for retirement, you have to fix the roof so it doesn't collapse. We can't just abandon all human ambition and spin in the grass all day.
Right. And that tension right there is the central struggle of modern human existence.
Yeah, it's a constant balancing act.
It is. And it's important to clarify that this philosophy isn't arguing that the human project lacks dignity or necessity. Building, planning, and anticipating the future are evolutionary adaptations that kept our species alive.
Right. We wouldn't be here without them.
Exactly. The issue at hand isn't that we have projects. The danger lies in the word tyranny. It's when we let the project completely consume our ability to experience the present without an agenda.
So it's about the dosage. Like, if your entire relationship with reality is dictated by what you can accomplish, you are constantly flooding your nervous system with cortisol.
Precisely. You are living in a low-grade state of survival mode. constantly scanning the horizon for threats or opportunities.
And the fairy serves as a reminder that, yes, while you absolutely must plan for tomorrow, if you entirely sacrifice the present moment to do so, you lose your connection to the living world.
Right, you become an observer of your own life rather than an active participant.
And reclaiming even small pockets of time from that tyranny of the project radically changes how you exist. And interestingly, when you strip away that constant buzzing need to accomplish something, it profoundly alters how you relate to other people.
It completely dismantles how we form relationships, leading to what the text describes as fairy friendship.
Fairy friendship. I mean, let's be honest about how human beings usually operate here. We often base our friendships on some level of utility, even if it's entirely subconscious.
Oh, absolutely.
We befriend people because of the professional network they provide or the social status of being associated with them. Or, very frequently, we use friendships as a tool to manage our own deep-seated loneliness.
Yes. Human relationships often carry this underlying transactional weight. Like, I give you my time and attention so that you will validate my existence and keep me from feeling isolated.
Right.
But fairies are not lonely. By their very nature, they are already perfectly connected to the intricate web of the garden's ecosystem. They don't experience the existential isolation of the human project.
And because there is no void to fill, when a fairy chooses a friend, it is an entirely pure choice.
Yeah.
The imagery used to illustrate this is so evocative. The text says they choose to spiral upward through a patch of lavender together. They choose to chase the exact same firefly through the dark, or simply rest side by side on the broad surface of a hosta leaf, just soaking in that thick golden afternoon light.
It models love at its absolute most distilled. It is a pure, unadulterated affirmation.
It's just looking at another being and saying, you exist, you are here, and the world is demonstrably better for it.
Exactly. And crucially, the world isn't better because something was lacking before the friend arrived. It's better because abundance naturally compounds upon itself. As the material notes, more light makes more light visible.
I mean, think about what a radical reimagining of community that is. Human philosophy and psychology have spent centuries trying to articulate what genuine, healthy belonging looks like.
Right. And we usually think it requires finding people who are exactly like us.
Yes. But true belonging here doesn't require sameness. It doesn't require ideological agreement or a shared trauma or even a long, complicated history. It merely requires the mutual recognition of each other's aliveness.
It is the exact inverse of modern networking.
Totally.
When you go to a networking event, the entire structure is based on extraction. What value can I extract from you and what value can you extract from me?
Right, it's transactional.
But fairy friendship operates on a completely different paradigm. It essentially says, I have absolutely no practical need of you, yet I enthusiastically prefer your company over solitude.
Which feels like a staggeringly high bar for relationship goals.
Doesn't it?
Yeah, I don't need you for anything, but I am thrilled that you are here. Achieving that requires dropping an immense amount of ego and utility-driven conditioning.
It really does.
Which leads to the most practical question you might be asking right now. How does a stressed, modern human being actually experience this pure state of belonging? Because we aren't just left with abstract philosophy here. There is a tangible, physical way to accept the garden's invitation.
Right, and it begins with recognizing that the environment is not a passive theater set. It actively works upon the human body.
Yes.
When you walk into a genuinely alive, thriving, natural space, your biology reacts.
Yeah.
Your nervous system actually begins to shift from the sympathetic fight or flight mode into the parasympathetic rest and digest mode.
We were talking about literal changes to your blood chemistry.
Exactly.
The phytoncides, those airborne chemicals released by trees, actually lower your cortisol levels. The fractal patterns of branches and leaves allow your visual cortex to relax.
Your breath naturally deepens and slows.
And your attention, which has been tightly focused into this narrow, stressful beam dealing with your personal problems and your inbox, is suddenly redistributed outward into the wide, expansive field of the living world.
And in that altered physiological state, simply existing in the space becomes a spiritual practice. But there is a crucial distinction to make here.
Oh, right.
It's not a ritual that you perform in order to access the sacred, as if the sacred is locked behind a door you have to force open.
Right, you aren't casting a spell to make something appear.
Exactly. It is a way of being that recognizes the sacred is already present all around you. The fairies aren't worshiping the garden. They are the garden's own joy, moving in its own inherent rhythm.
So the boundary between the watcher and the watched starts to blur.
Yes.
On the best days, when the light is filtering through the leaves just right and the temperature of the breeze matches the temperature of your skin, that boundary can dissolve entirely.
You suddenly realize you aren't an outsider observing an ecosystem. You are a biological organism dancing alongside it.
You literally lose track of where your edges end and the garden's edges begin.
It is a profound state of ecological integration. And perhaps the most comforting and beautiful aspect of this entire framework is its radical inclusivity.
Oh, I love this part.
Right. The fairies do not need you to believe in them in order to dance.
Exactly.
Mm.
The ecosystem does not require your intellectual validation to function. They are dancing whether you are watching or not, whether you have the proper conceptual framework for it or not.
The invitation never expires, and it is entirely open.
You can experience this threshold anywhere. You do not need to book an expensive vacation to a pristine, ancient redwood forest to find this.
No, not at all.
You can find it in an overgrown, neglected city plot between two brick buildings. You can find it on a fire escape with a window box containing some mint and a few brave marigolds fighting for sunlight.
Because the requirements for entry are internal, not geographical. It
Right.
requires deliberately cultivating that palm-up awareness we talk about.
Right.
It means consciously slowing your physical breath, softening your gaze, and most importantly, resisting the urge to constantly narrate what you are experiencing.
Resisting that internal narrator is the hardest part for me, to be honest.
Yeah.
The specific sensory instructions given here completely remind me of those Magic Eye posters from the 1990s.
Oh, that is a perfect analogy.
Right. If you walk up to a Magic Eye poster, tense your muscles, and stare forcefully at the center, commanding your brain with a narrative like, I am going to see the hidden sailboat right now, I am going to force it to appear, you see absolutely nothing.
Nothing at all.
Your brain just gets in its own way. You just see chaotic static.
Right, because your foveal vision, which is the type-focused vision we use for reading screens and managing projects, actively prevents you from seeing the deeper picture.
Exactly. But if you let your eyes relax, if you switch to your ambient peripheral vision and stop trying to aggressively manage the visual input, the depth suddenly appears out of nowhere.
The image reveals itself.
Yeah. And that is what it feels like to step into a garden without the tyranny of the project. You let go of the narrative and suddenly you feel that profound, sourceless feeling that you were expected. You realize the whole garden has been holding space for your arrival.
The depth is always present. It is our desperate straining to manage reality that flattens the image.
Beautifully said.
Let's synthesize the journey we've taken today. We have explored how treating the unseen elements of nature as real allows us to view joy not as a random accidental emotion, but as a vital ecological function.
Right.
We have discussed how loosening the grip of the tyranny of the project can transition our nervous systems from survival mode into a state of unburdened, absolute presence.
And we've examined how non-transactional delight, that pure, agendaless affirmation of another being's existence, can fundamentally redefine our modern concepts of community and love.
It really makes you reconsider every single patch of grass you walk past on your daily commute.
It totally does. So we want to leave you with a challenge for today. The next time you walk past a window box, or step into a local park, or even just notice a stubborn weed pushing its way up through a crack in the concrete sidewalk, try dropping your internal narration.
Just give it 30 seconds.
Yeah, 30 seconds. Stop planning your afternoon. Stop narrating your worries. Hold your awareness palm up and just feel the temperature of the air on your skin. See if you can catch even a fleeting glimpse of that inexplicable sense of lightness.
And as you experiment with that, consider this final thought. We've established that the fairy dance is the mechanism by which a natural, unmanaged ecosystem digests its own living energy.
Yeah.
But most of us do not live in unmanaged nature. We live in densely populated cities, in towering office buildings, in carefully engineered concrete homes. So if joy and spontaneous delight are the forces that organize the energy of the forest, what is the equivalent dance for the concrete human environments we have built? What unseen, unweighable forces are currently organizing the energy of our cities, our transit systems, and our neighborhoods? And are we brave enough to tune our awareness into that frequency?